I had this watch on my radar for a while, however I always dismissed it because I thought it would be too big, but with some recent really aggressive price drops I decided to finally pull the trigger and give this watch a try. However, my experience turned out to be quite different to what I expected, and no, it has nothing or almost nothing to do with the size. That's what she said. Hello and welcome to the channel. This watch was selling for around $200 mark for a while, so when I saw it discounted down to about $160, I thought it is a good time to pull the trigger. It is now priced around $170-ish, however, if you gather all the AliExpress coupons or wait for the next big sale or both, you should be able to get this watch price down to about $160. And while we're on the subject of price, it is of course not a secret that this Steeldive SD1968 is a pretty close homage to Seiko Marinemaster 300 meters, which even second-hand retails between $2,000 and $3,000, depending on the specific model. It is also a version 2 of this Steeldive watch, and Steeldive really did their homework here, making my job of finding issues much harder. But this watch is not just a collection of premium materials, and as a full package I really enjoyed my experience with it. It hides its size really well on the wrist, it has very strong diver tool watch vibe, and yet it has those subtle features that make it really pop on the wrist and still look like a premium timepiece. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let's get into the details and nitty-gritty of this review first, and then I will share any faults that I found, and I will also let you know if there will be a space in my collection for this watch. Dimensions. Alright, this watch does look quite substantial, however we need to remember that we are dealing with a Seiko homage here, and the magic that Seiko uses to make, on the first glance, massive watches appear very manageable even on the fairly slim wrists. So, before I run through the dimensions, here is this watch next to my 40mm Ghost Diver from Saint Martin. As you can see, dimensions of these two watches don't look that much different, well, from the top view anyway. So we have a 42mm bezel, which kinda defines the visual diameter of the watch. The actual case measured across is 43.5mm, we have 20mm lugs, and the supplied stainless steel bracelet has a taper down to 18mm at the clasp. Lug to lug is 50.5mm, and end link to end link distance is a bit longer at 53.5mm. Still very manageable though, however, it is the case height that will stand out. It is 17mm. Okay, taking into account that almost 2mm of that height is because of the somewhat higher installed bezel insert and double dome sapphire crystal which sits proud of the bezel, the effective case height is actually smaller. Still, it might be not easy to slide this watch under a tightest of shirt cuffs. However, it is still a very wearable timepiece, and I will of course show it on my about 7-inch wrist and even on a 6.25-inch wrist later in this review. And to finish off with dimensions, on a supplied stainless steel bracelet, this watch will cover up to 8.5-inch or 21.5 centimeters wrist in circumference. And this watch weighs 212 grams, and 200 grams exactly after adjusting the bracelet to my about 7-inch wrist. Case. As a first impression, this Steeldive is a robust and chunky dive watch. It comes across as a tool watch with a purpose. Either trying to push the engineering boundaries or simply justifying this watch's substantial appearance, Steeldive declared not 300 meters water resistance like on Seiko Diver, but 1000 meters of water resistance on this watch. Okay, honestly, I don't have any immediate means of testing this, well, really bonkers claim. However, this watch surely at least looks like it can handle such depths. The key feature of this watch case is of course a monoblock construction, which significantly improves the water resistance by getting rid of the case back altogether and practically eliminating the need for helium escapement valve that we normally see on watches with water resistance greater than 300 meters. The case is sculpted really well, it has a very distinct shape, almost like a cut precious jewel. The finishing is also good, the case is predominantly mirror polished, apart from the back of the case, top of the lugs and the thin chamfer on the flanks. The back of the case features a laser-etched Steeldive logo and some key specifications, and has quite a utilitarian look as we would expect from a tool watch. The top of the lugs brushing is a bit different. It is quite fine, almost satin-like brushing, and transitions between the facets are crisp and well defined. The only thing that is probably not finished to the same level as the rest of the case is the brushed chamfers on the flanks. At the distance they look good, however at close inspection they are a bit rough. Not end of the world though, but could have been done better. We have a signed screw-down crown at about 4 o'clock position, and we also have a drilled lugs, a very useful feature that definitely makes the strap changing much easier. Bezel. So we have a 120 clicks unidirectional bezel with ceramic insert. Arguably, Steeldive could have made this bezel a bit flatter to shave a fraction of a millimeter of the case height. However, it is really not a deal breaker. As a matter of fact, the bezel insert is set flush with the surrounding bezel grip, and it looks and feels quality. And yes, it is a fully loomed bezel, with loom pretty much on par with the loom on the dial, which we have plenty of, and we will look at it shortly. Bezel grip is also done very well, in line with the aesthetics of this tool watch. The bezel alignment is good, it is almost spot on. Okay, maybe a slight kink to the right, so not so much different from Seiko Prospex Divers. What else is not so much different from Seiko Prospex Divers is the bezel action. The resistance is good, however, like on the Seiko Divers, there is a bit of a backplay and the feel is a bit mushed up rather than snappy and tactile. So the bezel action is okay, however, I definitely handled better bezels on this channel. So here is how it sounds. Crystal. So we have a double dome sapphire crystal here with clear air coating. The quality of the crystal is very good and it deals with the reflections really well too. The crystal has a small beveling on the edge and is installed flush with the bezel, so no complaints here. Possibly installing the crystal below the bezel level would have shaved another millimeter of the total watch height. However, again, this is not a deal breaker here. Bracelet. Looking at the bracelet, we have solid end links and solid links. The finishing is very decent, we have high polished facets on the otherwise fully brushed bracelet. Each link is made of a single piece of metal, even though it does appear like a multi-part on the outside. The links are connected by pins and Steeldive even provided a tool to adjust the bracelet, which is nice. The end links and the case integration is very good as well, there is no play whatsoever and tolerances are very tight. The rest of the bracelet tolerances are less tight, but still okay. Following Seiko design, Steeldive used long links here, which reduce the bracelet's number of articulation points and flexibility to some degree. To be honest, I didn't find it a problem at all, however, if you want a different, more flexible bracelet, there are third-party options available, and of course, there is also an option of putting this watch on a rubber strap. We have milled a scissor double pusher clasp here, the clasp is signed and has plenty of MERKUR adjustments, which is good. It is apparently an upgraded clasp, the initial version of this watch had a fully pressed clasp, so this is a good upgrade. I still would like to see some kind of on-the-fly adjustment on this clasp, especially on such a tool watch like this one. And here is this watch on my about 7-inch wrist, and of course, as I promised, here it is on a 6¼ inch wrist. As a matter of fact, I think this watch can work on wrists starting from about 6 inches in circumference. Dial. Dial on this watch is of a very good quality, it is very clean and executed really well. We have printed minute chaptering at an angle to the rehaut, the applied hour markers are very generously filled with loom, and also executed really well. I like the high polish finish on the metal parts of the hour markers, it makes them bounce the light really nicely. Steeldive kept the writing on the dial to a minimum, which I think is a good decision. So we have a printed logo on top and printed automatic and 1000 meters of water resistance at the bottom of the dial. The date window cutout is also done very well. And I also like the handsets. The finishing of the minute and hour hands are also pretty good. We have brushing on top and high polished bevel edges, so the hands play in the light too, giving this utilitarian tool watch a bit of a premium feel. The second hand is well proportioned and also has high polish, and the tip is filled with loom. Here is the loom shot, and as I mentioned earlier, the loom is very good. This watch will definitely be one of the top loom performers on my channel, up there with Seiko GMT, San Martin, Captain Wheelet and Orient Triton. Okay, maybe the second-hand tip could do with a bit more loom, but I am really nitpicking here. Movement. Steeldive use Seiko NH35 movement here, which is probably the most appropriate choice. It beats at 21,600 vibrations per hour, it has about 41 hours of power reserve. Now, As we discussed earlier, one of the key features of this watch is a monoblock case, which of course enhances the water resistance of this watch. However, such a design also makes access to the movement a bit more complicated than usual. That is, now the only way to get to the movement is by removing the front part of the watch, that is bezel and crystal. So it would be good if this movement was also regulated by Steeldive to a better than Seiko default accuracy of -20 to +40 seconds a day. So rest assured, I did put it on a time grapher, and as we can see, the accuracy out of the box is actually very good. So more points to Steeldive here. Verdict. Before I share my verdict, if you find this review helpful, do hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. Apparently it helps the algorithm. So false, well, really nothing major at this price point. Maybe a slightly mushed up bezel action and a bit of a misalignment, but sort of similar what we see from Seikos, which are priced about 10 times more than this watch. Okay, if I really had to find something to complain about, then possibly lack of on-the-fly adjustment, which personally I kind of missed while wearing this watch. With other brands on AliExpress releasing more and more watches with on-the-fly adjustments, it would be great if Steeldive came up with an option of their own. But if we look at the positives, well, if we move aside all the specification details, it seems to me that this watch inherited that magical appeal of Seiko Marinemaster, and after being initially somewhat apprehensive about the size of this watch, I now look for any excuse to wear it. Okay, I understand that not everyone is into tool divers, but personally I like dive watches and I like a bit of heft on the wrist as well. So this watch really ticks a lot of boxes for me. Lume is great, accuracy is very good, the construction and build quality is on a high level, and the ceramic bezel and sapphire crystal will keep this watch looking fresh and like $1,000,000 for a long time. And as a cherry on the top, it is a very affordable timepiece for about $160. So this watch is definitely a keeper for me, for now anyway, and personally I wouldn't hesitate to wear it in any appropriate settings. Okay, maybe not an opera theater, although if the opera is really boring, I would at least enjoy the glow of this mighty lume. And if you enjoyed this review, you will most likely enjoy this one too, so give it a click. And of course, don't forget to subscribe, and as always, thank you for watching, take care, and I will see you in the next video.